Okay, welcome back. In this video we're going to go ahead and start with our JavaScript. I'm going to create a simple animation loop, and we're going to look at how to create a object, maybe a ball, and we're going to animate this, moving it around the screen. First of all, I have to set up the canvas, and so I can see that I've got just a couple of lines of code right now. It says window on load equals a init, and so when my window is done loading, I'm going to look for a function called init, and I've started that function right here. So JavaScript function init, and I'm going to get a canvas, and I'm going to set the dimensions, and then I'm going to call an animate loop. So first of all, let's go ahead and get the canvas. To get the canvas, I'm going to go ahead and just set up one line of code, canvas equals document.getElementById. Notice I don't have var here, and that's because I want to set up some global variables here, so I'll just say globals, and globals. So I have my global variables right here, and I'll set up a var for, let's say, the canvas, and then I'll set up one for my context. I'll just call it CTX for short, and I think that'll do it for me right now. Well, let's create an object just for this demo. Let's call it a ball, and I'll make that lowercase, so I'm going to have a ball moving around the canvas. So those are the three global variables that I'm going to need, and now down here I've got canvas, so document.getElementById. If I look back on my index.html, notice that I have a canvas object, and its ID is canvas. So I need to make sure I'm using that exact name. So let's come back over here to my game, and notice that I have the ID of my canvas is CNV. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I want to set the dimensions of the canvas, and you can set them to anything you want. I forget what the default is. It's like 250 by 250, something rather small. But I'm going to say the canvas width is the inner width of the window, so whatever the window size happens to be on the system you're looking at this on. And so the same thing for the window height. In any case, I have canvas style border, and I'm going to have solid black.2px, so I'll have a little border around my canvas. And finally, I'm going to have the style background, and I'm just going to choose a color. Notice I have the alpha set to 0.5, but this is RGB, red, green, blue, and so I have 0 red, 44 green, and 55 blue. It's going to be a rather dark color, sort of a bluish green. And if I accept all of those, the canvas now is going to be set up. Now the canvas itself is basically just a container. The thing that has all of the methods that you're going to want to use to do the animations and so forth is called your context. So now let's add the context. So here I'll just say let's add the context. And the context has all the methods I'm going to need to do all my representations and animations. And so to do that, I need to create my context. So I have canvas.getContext2D. So the canvas object now has a method called getContext, and this tells me which context I'm getting. It's just the 2D, and there are some 3D ones. There's some other contexts out there, but this is basically going to give me an object that has lots and lots of methods available to it. Create balls and update balls I'm going to use to create these things, these ball things that I have, and so I'll have to create that down a little bit below. Actually, we can leave this out for right now. And so at this point, I just want to call the animate function, so I need to write an animate function. Okay, let's just take a quick look at what we've done. We did window on load. I'm going to call this function init, and so this is my function here. This isn't actually a function call. Notice there's no there's no parentheses after this, but when I get this on load, this is going to trigger an event, and the event will call this method init, whatever name I put here, and then I've created my canvas, I've set the dimensions of the canvas, I've added a context, and then I called a method or a function called animate, and so that function is right here. Whoops, don't need that line. So this is my function animate, and all the animate function is going to do right now is I've got this animate function and then request animate frame, and then I call that function again. And so this is going to happen at a specific time interval. I believe the default is 33 frames per second. I'm not quite sure about that, but in any case, request animation frame will make a loop with a specific time interval for me. The next thing I want to do is create some kind of object that I can animate. So I'm going to animate a ball object, and so to do this I'll create a constructor function. I'll just say function ball with a capital B, and have a couple curly braces in here, And now I want to add some, let's see, some variables in here such that I can move this thing around. So I think I'll go ahead and say this dot x, and I'll give it an x value, and this dot y, so it'll know where it's located within the canvas. The second thing is I need a speed x and a speed y, so I'll say this dot, let's say dx for speed, and we'll say this dot dy, and dy is going to be its y velocity or its y speed. And I could give it a color, or I could give it a, I better give it a radius, so this dot radius, and so we'll go ahead and leave those guys. So those guys don't have any values left. So when I create a ball object, it's going to have an x location and a y location, and so I'm going to use a random value, so I'll say math.random, and you can think of math.random as giving you a number between 0 and 1. Think of it as a percentage, and I'm going to just simply multiply this by the inner width of the window. So I'll say window inner width here, and then I'll copy that whole thing over for the y value, except instead of the inner width, I want my vertical value, which is going to be inner height. So I'll go ahead and put that in here. So I've got a random x and random y. It's going to be anywhere within the window, anywhere along the x-axis and the y-axis, and then dx and dy. I will take my math random, and I want this guy to be between, let's say, 3 and negative 3. So I'll multiply this guy by 6 and then subtract 3. It's going to give me any value between 0 to just under 6. And then if I take that and multiply 3, it'll give me values between negative 3 and 3. I'll do the same thing for y. And I'll put that value in here. And the radius, let's say I want my radius to be, let's say, of a range of 10, and I want it to start at 15. So this will give me values starting at 15, and then this is going to be a percentage of 10, so it'll give me anything from 15 up to, but not including 25. Okay, so I took a closer look and I just realized this is a negative 15, and so I need to make this a positive 15. So what's going to happen here is, remember, this is going to give me a number between 0 and 1. Again, think of it like a percentage. So if I got 0, 0 times 10 is 0, so the smallest value I can get is going to be 15, and then I will add some percentage of 10 to that, so I'll get numbers between 15 and 25. In any case, now I need to go ahead and create a function for updating it. So I'll say this dot update, and that's going to be equal to a function, and that function is going to simply add the dx and dy values. So I'm going to take this dot x, and I'm going to add to that, so I should say plus equals this dot dx, and I'll do the same thing for dy. So this dot y is equal to, plus equals this dot dy. Okay, good. So now that is ready to go, and the last thing I want to do here is simply call my render function, so this dot render, and at this point I need to make another function called render, so I'll say this dot render is equal to another function, and that function is going to draw my ball to the screen. Okay, now to draw the ball to the screen, I'm going to need to use methods that are in the context. So remember, my context object is called CTX. I'm going to go ahead and do a fill style, which is going to be RGBA, and so it's going to be mostly opaque, a little bit of transparency, so it looks like this guy is going to have some more red than green and just a little bit of blue. And so down here I'm going to say stroke, and actually this should say stroke style, so let's change that to stroke style, and let's run this thing and see what I get. So if I come back over here and run this, this guy is running nicely. Okay, so to finish off this video, I'm just going to make a couple of other quick changes. I've got CTX, that's my context. I've got stroke style. I'm also going to use something called fill style, so I will just copy this in and say fill style. So this is going to actually fill my rectangle, and to show that I've got to say CTX fill. So now that guy is ready to go, and I'll give this guy a different color. Let's do the stroke style something really quite dark. Let's just do 2, 2, 2, and we'll make it fully opaque, so I'll say 1. Alright, so now I think if I run this guy again, Let's see what happens. Okay, so I can see that he is got, he's just going to run off the side of the screen each time. But as I do this, notice that each ball is not getting replaced. So let's go ahead and take care of that. And so if I come back here, I will add one line of code back up in the animate. So every time I come in here, I'm updating the ball, but I'm going to add a line of code that's going to erase the previous ball. Okay, so the line of code I need to add in is this guy. It's simply a clear rect. Notice it's a method inside the context. So my context object dot clear rect, and I'm going to go ahead and start this at the upper left-hand corner and do the full width and the full height of the screen. So the coordinate system for the Java context is going to be 0, 0 is the upper left-hand corner, x increases as it moves to the right, and y increases as it moves downward. So this is going to get a rectangle from 0, 0 all the way down to the lower right-hand corner. Let's see what happens now. If I run this again, now I see that my ball, every time I'm moving, the ball is just going to look like an animated ball, and each previous ball is getting erased. Okay, that's it for today. Bye-bye.